Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hi, welcome to Real Conversations with Lisa and Susan, and I'm Susan.
And I'm Lisa. Welcome.
Today we're going to be talking about social networking, which is all the rage. And we've got a couple of guests who do this for a living, and we're going to be able to chat about it.
And specifically, we're going to be talking about privacy. You know, many people are reticent to get on any of these Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. I don't even know the name of all of them, but you know, to get on them because the concern is about your privacy being stolen and identity theft and all those kinds of things where people know so much about you. And we're going to be talking about, what can you expect if you're part of social media?
And the value of social media. I mean, why are people doing it?
It's really interesting, isn't it? When you think about, even 10 years ago, wasn't even in the vernacular. We weren't even really talking about it, and now suddenly it's everywhere. I don't think I can go a week without seeing some workshop somewhere for business owners about, how to use social media to build your business.
Well, do you remember back in the far past when we first put the idea for the show together, we were talking about using the show to connect to people.
That's
and we
right.
were talking about the need for people to connect, and people have a hunger to connect. And so out of that conversation, we did this show. But I think for a lot of people, they're feeling that need to connect in the virtual world, which is kind of odd because it's not really connection.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, we'll probably get into this more, but I know for myself, one of the things that being on Facebook has allowed is I feel more a part of my nieces and nephews' lives.
Oh, okay.
Because they're posting what's going on in their lives. They're in college or they're grown up and they're married or whatever. And who has time? I don't have time to see all my nieces and nephews. I know it's a terrible thing to say, but I don't. I have them. They live in other states, and to be able to connect with them in that way, it makes me feel like I'm more a part of their lives.
Well, I think that's a really good idea, and that does make some sense. And as I'm listening to you, I have a niece who lives in Thailand, and my nephew lives in Northern California. And my siblings and I are all real busy doing a bunch of different things. So, like if I go to a family event and take a lot of pictures, I'll upload them onto a web page, and then send invites to my family so that we can all see the pictures all at the same time. And I have a grandniece and a grandnephew who are living elsewhere. And I can kind of get to see them grow up through these pictures, and they can, I can see them at 6 months and a year and so on.
And I think that, I think social media serves a lot of different purposes, and certainly we could talk about that as well. But I think that need to connect is one of the driving forces that has it being such a widespread phenomenon at this point. That's my opinion.
I think with the economic recession, I started reading a lot about how people are needing to leave their immediate families to go out in search of a job.
Yeah.
And I remember in particular a story that I read. The woman took a job in Alaska, and her husband was like in Oklahoma. And the thing was, well, that's where the job was. And so that's where I had to go. But how do you continue to maintain the level of connection that a marriage requires to be healthy and stay healthy? And I think that's one of the beauties of technology.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, let's get our guests in here in this conversation. We have some terrific guests, as we've been so privileged to have wonderful guests on our show. So first we have Vic Cipolla from the new group, Is that right? Newcom Group.
Newcom
I'm
Group,
sorry.
yes.
I always get at least one name of the guest wrong, right? The Newcom Group. I apologize. And Jeff Garankin, the founder of iZoka.com, which is a social networking site, but specifically for communities, and you'll tell us about that.
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, why don't we talk a little bit first, just to get us started. Vic, why don't you start us off with, tell us a little bit about yourself and why this topic is, something you want to talk about.
Oh, well, I've been a PR and advertising person for about 20 years, and I would say over the last 3 to 4 to 5 years, my industry has changed dramatically. It's more about social media than it is about anything else. As a matter of fact, getting clients on social media and social networks are becoming more important than getting them newspaper stories and news stories. Much more important. Not even just slightly more important, but much more important. And if you're in the PR field, and you have been for a while, if you're not switching into social media with your clients, you're probably going to get hurt as a PR professional.
Who'd have thought that, right? I mean, you'd think press coverage, and that was the most important thing ever.
Now the press is reacting to the coverage we're putting out on social media networks. So it's becoming very different.
We'll get back to that in a minute. Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with founding a social media company.
And what does it mean, iZoka?
Yeah, wow, okay. Well,
Answer all that.
okay, well, we'll put that all into this little package. Yeah, so I started thinking about social media in early 2000.
Wow, way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, before they called it social networking
Which,
websites.
I have genes that are way older than that amount of time. I mean,
another show.
2000, I think I've got towels older than that.
Yeah,
But it's not that long ago, really.
Well,
but in the social media world and technology world, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
A lot's happened since then. So I got the idea. I was actually a sales rep selling synthetic DNA to research labs at research institutions at universities and pharmaceutical companies. And I'd spend my day on campus with my backpack going door to door, handing out literature and selling these research products to the researchers. And it occurred to me that at that time, and this is when Google had just got funded by Kleiner Perkins. They raised some money. It was 98, 2000, and they announced that their monetization platform was going to be through search and keyword search, and they would deliver ads based upon these things. And the media slammed them. No, it's never going to work. It's never going to happen.
Oh, the media wrong? Who knew?
Yeah, well, I was thinking, that's kind of that's an interesting business model, and wouldn't it be cool to create a portal? They weren't called social networking sites at that time. They were called portals or things like that. Wouldn't it be interesting to have a portal for college students to network and get together? And that's kind of when I started thinking about it. And fast forwarding to 2007, I was working for a startup in Troy, New York, Evident Technologies. And I was stranded at an airport in Chicago, and I watched everybody walk around with their BlackBerries, texting people, and I was thinking, wow, it'd be really cool if I could maybe send a text to a group of people that I know, maybe in my industry or something like that, or my family, or all these different groups, and let them know that I'm here at the airport, because I was there for 10 hours with nothing to do. So I was just thinking, and I was thinking about Google, the evolution of Friendster, and then all of a sudden the nosedive with them, and MySpace and Facebook, which was just emerging. I was like, wow, there's something there. So then I kind of dug into it and spent many months developing the concept of iZoka. iZoka is a derivative of the word Zocalo, which is a town square in Mexico City.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
nice.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Wanted a nice short word to describe what we were doing. So it's a meeting place. It's a town square for businesses, people to get together.
So let's first talk about what's the value of social media that has it be so profound, profound is the other word that's come to mind, but what's the word, so pervasive? That's the word I want.
Yeah. Do you want to say?
Sure. It's a twofold process. Obviously, for people, I'm a perfect example. I'm going to be 44 years old. I'm connecting with high school folks I haven't talked to in 15 and 20 years, and it's great to see many of them, who's in Missouri, who's in, I would have
Right.
never, even going to 20-year reunions, you're not going to catch the people who are around the country. Now, I mean, I had a graduating class of 650 on Long Island, and there are about 400 of them on Facebook right now.
Wow.
And everybody's connected to everybody, and we're talking, and who's seeing their kids. So there's a personal connection and a past reminder that's nice. For businesses, it's direct-to-consumer marketing. I mean, it's just, you're right there. You have, 500 million people on Facebook open to your availability? LinkedIn, I mean, you name the network, they have millions, not thousands, but millions of people on them. And if you do it right, you can get your product out in front of them in a faster way than pretty much any other way out there at the moment.
And cheaper, too.
And cheaper, yeah. Even if you bring in companies like ours in to do your work, it's still cheaper than buying 2 weeks of television, that's for sure.
Wow. Or even an ad in the Yellow Pages, which,
And, yeah,
who
which-
uses anymore?
Yellow Pages are getting hurt. Newspapers are getting hurt dramatically. They're dramatically changing their model. More people want to advertise on their website, the Times Union website, than in the Times Union itself.
Yeah.
And you can custom deliver the message.
Yes.
Right? Which brings up the issue of privacy and data mining and gathering that information so that you can target your audience and custom deliver your message. And
Yeah.
that's kind of scary. It's kind of spooky. It's very effective.
Well, I mean,
and
if
you
you-
can charge lots of money for that.
If you think
when
about
deliver
data
it.
mining, I mean, we all have those little key things, they swipe. I mean, that's all that is data mining. It's, you have your Price Chopper card, you swipe it through. Well, they're now keeping track of what you're purchasing and what, they know your age group because you filled out the form. Same thing's happening on social media networks. So yeah, they're following what you're doing. It's not that difficult with, back-end cookies to figure out what people are buying and where their preferences are. And
So how far away are we from Big Brother? I know that's kind of a big
Well, that's
discussion.
interesting. So Big Brother is really being fueled by individuals participating on these social networking websites. They're freely disclosing all of their personal information for the world to see. And there's problems with Facebook and Twitter. And the problems lie in the architecture. We use these websites because that's how they were created. They were created to get to the very basic, essential social element of all people, and that is people want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be, seen and heard by the masses.
Well, I don't think everyone wants that. Of course, here we have a television show. Of course,
Well-
we don't want to be seen or heard, but
But you know how addictive it is, right? So if you hadn't been on Facebook and you start and you log on to Facebook for the first time, and all of a sudden you're being connected to people that you went to high school and college with.
I
And
didn't want to be connected to those people when I was there. No, I'm not saying that.
are you using it now?
I do think everyone is a little different.
Yeah, everyone's
Maybe
a little
it's
different,
generational,
but
I don't
it
know.
is somewhat addictive, and so I think we're like the social media generation. This is, it's a new thing. Everyone is consuming this this new technology, but it's going to change, and Facebook is already starting to try to adapt its platform to the changes. They're becoming more private. And there's new social networking websites that are emerging that are more niche. And the problem with Facebook and Twitter is that they create a platform that broadly scatters your information out there. You really don't know where it goes. And you could look at there's an application on Facebook, a social graph application. And a social graph is simply a pictorial image on how you're connected to other people. So there's you, there's somebody else that you know, and there's a bunch of people around them that they know, and then you might share a photo with somebody else, and that photo is tagged by you, and it's tagged by other people, and it's very weird, convoluted, and your information is getting broadly scattered out there.
Right.
And now what they're doing is just saying, not everybody wants to share their information. So let's put some privacy controls in there. Let's try to both spread the information and compartmentalize people's lives. So they're actually going down the road with groups. When we started iZoka.com, Facebook didn't have groups, and LinkedIn didn't have groups. So we're really the first to delve into connecting people to the groups that they are connected to, both private and public. And we started from the very private standpoint of social networking, where you're just created to maybe your family, and you're created to a work group and a nonprofit organization, and all these different groups. Some of them are private and some of them are public. Well, they have to go back and put these mechanisms into place, and that's a very cumbersome, difficult thing to do.
I imagine
So-
going back and fixing is always harder than creating it
Right.
right the first time,
And,
right?
and
Yeah.
I would think that, from your perspective, Vic, and your clients, I mean, business does not want to see this correction happen, right? They like it the way it is.
Yeah, in certain instances,
It's more
yes.
valuable, isn't
It's
it?
much more valuable, but to give Facebook somewhat their credit, when they started up, they kind of learned from the MySpace mistake, which was it was so open in architecture that anybody can get to you. Facebook is reasonably closed, and especially if you want to make it closed, you can close yourself off dramatically. But whereas MySpace, you were able to spam away anybody and everybody. They really kind of you have to connect to the person has to connect to you, then you can hit them with whatever you want to, but you still have to make that initial connection. There has to be some kind of an agreement from the other person to grab you. Twitter's a different story. Twitter's wide open, and the Twitter folks themselves will admit they never expected it to grow as fast as they did, and they're basically duct taping the back-end architecture as fast as they can to try it. I mean, they're down 3% at a time, which for a network
I know.
is horrid.
It is
Not, I mean,
awful.
usually networks are up 99.5, 99.2. They're only up 97% at times. I mean, 3% at times they're down.
And
it's
it seems
huge.
like every time I go on, which is rarely,
You Twitter? You Twitter?
I do.
Okay.
The fail
Vic,
whale.
Vic, I got a question for you. What is it with Twitter? I don't get it. I just don't get why anybody would be interested. I could see following a movie star or celebrity or something. I can kind of get that. I wouldn't really want to know what they were doing on a day-to-day basis, but I can appreciate that. But anyone else? I mean, why would anybody want to know what the average Joe is doing every 15-minute segment of their life? What's the psychology behind
Twitter and
that?
Facebook recently did something, and LinkedIn did something interesting, and they all partnered with Google. And so before, I always questioned the value of Twitter. Well, now because of this partnership with Google, if you Google somebody or a company or anything, Twitter results will show up on the first couple of pages.
Wow.
So
Okay.
so I think that there's some type of revenue model built in there for Google. I don't
There
really
must
know what
be.
it is, but you'll find that your LinkedIn profile is going to be among the first to be displayed.
I have noticed that with LinkedIn, but
Yeah.
what the reason I say wow, and then Vic, I want you to jump in here, is because I think it's what some people tweet. I would not want that stuff. You know what? I see what some people tweet, and I'm like, I don't even want that near my name.
It's not.
you know?
It's not just Twitter. Take a look at Facebook statuses. Take a look at
I
people who
know.
join Foursquare. Take a look at. I don't know if it appeals to the general voyeuristic character in most human beings. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I can tell you that it just keeps exploding. And I mean, people are tweeting and Facebook statusing, woke up this morning, going to take a shower.
Who, Vic?
Out of
Who's
500
Twittering
million
that?
people. I mean, it's like
Well,
it's
not
millions.
everybody.
Because I'm not.
It's your
But
neighbor.
like,
It's your neighbor, yeah. It's a
Is it?
majority. Yeah, it's a majority of the
Is
people.
it like somebody 40 to 65 years old,
The
middle
largest
income?
growing group of people on social networks right now are 30 to 45-year-olds. It's the largest growing group by far, and the second largest growing group is over the age of 60. So
Well, that's good.
It's becoming. It's not just college students by any stretch of the imagination now.
No, it can't be. When you look at the numbers, there's
500
no way.
million people on
It can't
Facebook.
be.
There's only 350 million people in the United States. So
The question that I have for you, one of the questions is, how do you balance when you're getting your clients on these social networks? How do you balance privacy with, with the need to get it out there? I mean,
well, for the client, we're only putting out what they want us to put out. We try and explain to the client it's social. You have to understand the first word in this is social. So you need to engage your clients, you need to engage your customers in something that's a little bit more than come buy this. It's $29.95 this
I
week.
know.
But Vic, isn't that just classic marketing anyway? Isn't that akin to, hey, let's go and play golf together, and I'm going to pitch my idea to you? Isn't that
It
in the
is.
virtual
That's
world
exactly
the
what it
same
is.
thing?
It's virtual networking. That's exactly what you're doing. You're doing what PR firms would do for years, which was pitch stories that had subtle marketing, ties underneath it. Whereas, straight on 30-second television commercials are buy me, buy me, buy me, buy me.
Mm-hmm.
This is much more like a public relations kind of thing where you're going out there and,
This is know me, buy me, know me, buy me.
right, exactly.
yeah, know me, like me, buy me.
We have a jewelry store client where we put out information on what the birthstone of the month is, how to identify a good diamond from a bad diamond, where to what's how are emeralds and rubies related. We put a lot of information out there, and somewhere in there we'll put down, oh, by the way, this is October is opal month. come buy opals for 50% off this month.
Yeah,
But it's always interspersed amongst information.
Right. We were talking about this earlier, like with healthcare providers. Healthcare providers, I know that there's, with healthcare reform, there's going to be this requirement that they use more technology to manage their, patient population base. But I recently got something in the mail. Could have been electronic, but they're not there yet. But I was pleased to get something in the mail from them saying, hey, it's time for your annual exam. I'm like, oh, okay, great, because if I hadn't received that in the mail, I would have totally forgotten about it. So I would think that technology is something that healthcare providers could harness to keep people healthier and drum up revenue for themselves. And so it's a win-win, right?
There's a big move to electronic records in the healthcare system now.
Yeah.
In fact, I was just over at my dentist a week or two ago, and they're going all digital.
Yeah.
So we had to, fill out all the, the paperwork.
Lots of privacy issues there.
Lots of privacy issues.
Lots of privacy.
But once you get through all that, it's going to make things a lot easier. And when you go into an emergency room and you need quick assistance, everything's going to be right there on some type of handheld device.
My doctor and my cardiologist, and they have an urgent care center. They're all electronic.
Yeah.
So, I was in a car accident once, and I had to I went to urgent care because it wasn't enough for, emergency room. They pulled up all my records. They knew every medication I was on, because I'm trying to think, what am I on? Have I changed? They knew everything, and it was really great. In that instance, it was really great. I am personally not someone who wants all my information on the internet, and I wonder, do you think there's a connection with like reality TV and that sort of
15
trend?
minutes of fame.
People who are on reality TV saying
Just
the
letting
most,
it all hang out.
Yeah, they're like the most obscene and crazy
Well,
things
the
about
thing is,
themselves.
again, it's because of the way these networks have been created. It allows people to go in and be voyeuristic. They can expose themselves, their lives, and get fans, and it's very different. But those are the only architectures that are available to us, the only social networks. Izoka.com is creating a new way of connecting to people, and it's through groups. And we'll be launching Izoka communities towards the end of the year. And basically what this is, we realize that everybody participates in groups in their lives. Some of them are private and some of them are public. Well, all of our public groups will be able to promote their content to a community. It could be Albany, New York. It could be Santa Fe, New Mexico. So it's what we call hyperlocal. There's a whole new wave that's emerging called the hyperlocal websites.
And Google's doing that too, right? Google,
What
I'm
is
sorry.
that?
Hyperlocal.
Google is doing,
Yeah.
well, Google's also doing searching that's based upon where you are, what your search patterns are before. So a lot of times now, if you're in Albany, New York, and you're searching you type in hair salon, it's not going to bring up hair salons in Albany, Georgia. It's going to bring them up in Albany, New York first. They've really done, actually Google's done a very good job of really isolating how people search and making it even better. Mm-hmm. However, now people are using Facebook to search, and as of August, they just announced that Facebook passed Google Facebook is the first people to pass Google in 5 years for number of minutes spent on the internet. It was like 41 million minutes were on Facebook and 38 million minutes were on Google. So, and that's including all of Google's affiliate, because they have YouTube, that's all theirs. And if you added all of their minutes together, Facebook still beat them. So it's the big bear on the block by a long shot.
That's amazing.
So could you say more about did you say hyperlocal?
Hyperlocal.
What does that mean?
Yeah, and it's funny because I like to spell it as one word, and you can Google it as one word, but it's you can.
Is it like what's happening on your
You
block?
should put a hyphen in the middle. Yeah, so hyperlocal, it could be, and there's websites that are out there that deliver content to geographic communities. There's some websites out there. Every block is a hyperlocal website. Patch.com, which was purchased by Google or AOL in 2009 for $10 million. What they do is they deliver content to communities. They create these little communities, and they hire an editor, a blogger, that will go in and write about the communities. What's going on. They deliver events and news.
Wow.
It's like everything old is new again, because 15, 20 years ago, when the internet was first invented, if you will, it was all about globalization and going global. And now it's come back around to knowing what's going on in your neighborhood.
Right, and it's getting right down. There's another.
Because nobody has the time to open the door and look.
So
Because of the work-life balance
yeah,
issues.
it's true. Yeah. I mean, here's a great example. When we launched Izoka a couple years ago, and it was in its very basic version, we formed a neighborhood group. And like a few days after it launched, the water pressure in our house just stopped. It was crazy. And so my wife was on Izoka, and she found out from one of the other neighbors that the water pressure had dropped. And all of a sudden, everybody in the neighborhood knew within 5 minutes that there was a problem with the city water system.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if you remember, in Clifton Park, there was a water main break. So that was like really, it was instant. And otherwise, we probably wouldn't have known for the entire day.
Right. So you saw it on the news or something?
Yeah, well, no, right. And we found out through, that group was a hyperlocal group.
Jeff, are you in discussions with municipalities over how they may use this type of service?
Well, it's interesting. So when we launch these community pages, it's going to be great for municipalities. It'll be great for businesses wanting to advertise specifically to their community. So,
because I definitely see how
municipalities
towns and
would be
cities
great.
would be able to utilize something like this.
So you'll be able to go onto Izoka and type in a zip code and pull up any city in the United States and find out information, events, discussions, photos.
What are their issues?
What-
If
yeah.
you're thinking about relocating, you could go in and say,
you can
what are
ask
their
a
issues?
question. Yeah, you can ask a question and post it to the community discussion board. So it's a new way of delivering social media to these organizations.
Wow.
We're also looking into colleges. So colleges have multiple organizations and groups, alumni, athletics. These are all different groups, and it'd be great to have a college community that is made up of all the groups at the university, and it all feeds up to a college community site.
Don't most colleges already have websites that have various
They do, but
clubs
they're
and
not
whatnot?
social networking websites.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's key. Now, this hyper local is probably going to make a big difference in the business community too, right?
Yeah, we can pitch right to your local community. I mean, if you're not a global business and you're trying to, you're a local jewelry store, you're a local product, you want to pitch the communities. Yeah, you can find, especially with something like Izoka, you can go in and find the communities you're looking for and hit them. But again, it has to be social. You can't be pitching constantly because people will just shut you off.
I think that's a really important point because there are nuances that, like I have a book, one of the books I wrote, I have a page on Facebook, and it's so interesting to watch, like when I put up a particular post, what gets. What gets, what do I want? Like, I don't even know the word.
What gets feedback.
What gets feedbacks, what gets comments, and what doesn't. It's amazing. And I'm really discovering a lot of interesting things because I'm not an expert in those kinds of things, but I'm learning like certain questions. If I put them on, I'll get a lot of feedback or I'll get a lot of interaction, and then other questions I think, oh, this is going to be a good one, and it's like nothing.
Yeah, it's hit or miss. It's very much so. It also depends on the topic. It depends on. We have we rep a couple of bars in the area. We put stuff out for them. We get 1 million comments. We have a lady who wrote a book about autistic children. She has a lot of lurkers on her page. A lot of people to come in, and she's got a lot of unique page views, but no one comments. No one wants to talk about it. I think a lot of them are out there looking for information about their own children, but they don't want to share that with the public. So, it's hit or miss.
I like that word, lurkers.
Yeah,
Although it sounds very dangerous.
I like that. Is that a term of art?
It's a term, yeah. Lurkers, they just come, they look at your page, and they don't
But they
comment.
don't buy.
But well, in this case, some have bought the book and some have been involved in it, but they don't actively participate in the community, and I think it's because of the topic matter. So gauging return on investment, which is always big, is very difficult with social media because it has a variety of different options to it. So.
Yeah, and I think those people may come back at another point and buy something, or
It's like when you put out a coupon, your sales go up, but not everybody brings in the coupon. It's kind of like relational, but most people won't talk about the coupon. They won't say, "Oh, well, I'm here because I saw the coupon." So.
Right. Well, we only have a couple of minutes left on the show, so anything you'd like to say about either social media and privacy, or I know we're talking-
Predictions about the future?
Yeah, anything you'd like our viewers to know that would be helpful to them.
We're kind of in the Wild West right now, so I think the prediction is it's going to grow for the next 2 to 3 years, and I think you're going to see some major changes in it. On the privacy side, I'm going to tell your viewers the same thing I tell everybody else. Don't put anything on Facebook you don't want everyone to see. Because once it's there, it's almost impossible to get it off.
Any social media site, not
any
just
social
Facebook,
media
right?
site.
I mean, Twitter or LinkedIn or...
I worked in Rensselaer County government for years, and I ran the technology department. It was back in the early 90s when email was coming out, and we used to send out messages all the time. Don't write emails that you don't want read later on by somebody else, because that once they're there, they're almost impossible to get rid of.
Yeah, that's a good point. How about for you, Jeff?
Well, I think what's going to happen in the future is that all these social networking websites, once we get all the people using it, they're going to have to redefine themselves, because the people are going to want something else. They're not going to want to keep connecting to people from their past, because they'll have been on there for years and they'll already be connected. So what's next? Is it just purely a social interaction, or are there tools that we could create to really make these connections more useful?
That's a great point.
Maybe we could use it to create a better world.
Maybe we can.
Maybe we can. I think I'm going to end it on that note. I was going to say something else,
Just
but
a better world.
That was
That's all I want. Is that so bad?
I mean, come on. What did Bob Marley say? One world, one love, right?
Yeah.
That's one world, one love.
There you go.
great.
Okay, well, we have done it again. We have another wonderful show, Real Conversations with Lisa
we do
and
say
Susan.
so ourselves.
If we do say so ourselves. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again real soon.